All right, some tools you needed to make repair to just your regular inner tube type puncture. So what you're going to want to have here is a pump and a patch kit and some of these tire irons. And in the last presentation, somebody asked, well, wouldn't you want 3? Like, yeah, actually, it's not a bad idea to have 3. It depends upon, you know, some tires are easy to get on, some are harder to get on and off. Again, if you're actually depending on your bike, and let's say you get a new bike, you actually depend on this bike to get around, I would strongly recommend that you give it a try pulling the tire off and putting it back on so you know how much effort, how hard is it to actually do. I had a triathlon bike. I did a triathlon, like a Olympic distance triathlon years ago, and I got a flat, and it took me half an hour to get that blasted tire off. And I came in so late to the finish line that they were closing down the thing by the time I got there, and I was already going to be pretty close to the end anyway. Another fun thing is these little tubes of glue somehow don't manage to do real well in the Texas summers when they're stored in the garage where it probably reaches 150 degrees. So just because you think you have a patch kit doesn't mean you have a patch kit if the glue tube is turned into a solid mass. So it's something to check periodically. You haven't had a flat in a while, take the time, put it on your calendar, I don't know, to check to make sure that tube of glue is actually still a tube of glue. So the first step here is to remove the tube. And so this image shows here the inner tube coming off. We've used the tire irons and slid the tire off, and we've pulled the tube out. It's a real good idea to keep them lined up. So here you have the stem, and I'm keeping it lined up with a hole in the rim. And the reason I'm doing that is so that when I check for where the puncture is in the inner tube, I can then know where to look in the tire for the object that made the puncture. Sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's not. I did a tour in West Texas on some road that was heavily trafficked by trucks, and I must have hit every single little teeny piece of metal from dead truck tires, and I had probably 10 flats in one day. And I had to sit there and meticulously, very carefully find where the little teeny metal filaments were and then pull them out with a knife that I'm going to show you in a minute and get them out. And if I didn't line up the tube like that and know kind of at least where to begin to look, I never would have found them because they were really hard to find because they were very teeny. So it's a good idea to line this up so as you get through this process, you know where to look on inside the tire, feeling with your finger on the inside of the tire carefully so that you don't cut yourself in case it's something nasty in there, but that's how you're going to feel for it. So once you get the inner tube out, you can inflate it, and usually you can listen for the leak just by holding it up to your ear. If that doesn't work, if you can put it in like a pan of water, the bubbles will show you where the leak is. And the trick is to get the inner tube out and dry it off. And, you know, with one hand, you have to have 3 hands for this. Oh, like I said, finding the puncture. Yeah, these little Swiss Army knives had these little teeny tweezers on it, and I always carry one of these little Swiss Army. They're not very expensive. They have the best tweezers for taking out splinters and very fine objects from tires. So I always keep one of these in my repair kit on my bike. All right, so you've identified where the hole is in the inner tube. You want to mark this spot with a big X with the chalk that comes in the little kit. And you want to make sure the X is pretty big because in the next step, you're going to want to sand down a little bit, a little piece of sandpaper that comes in the kit. And you want to kind of abrade an area bigger than the patch so that you can attach the patch to it. If you make the X big enough, you can still look at that and figure out where the hole is because you can look where the lines are and you can figure it out. If you make the X too small, I've done this, you sand away and then you get done and say, oh, I did a good job sanding. And then you look down and go, oh, where's the hole? I can't find the hole because I sanded away all the chalk. So by doing it this way, kind of helps you out a little bit. Then the glue that hopefully you didn't let harden is applied, and it's kind of sticky and tacky, and just smear it into a little bit bigger than the actual patch that you're going to put on. You want to make it a little bit bigger diameter than the patch. Some of the patches are oval shaped, some are circular. I don't know what the difference is, honestly. If you have a patch that needs to be applied, if you have a tear in there that's so big that you need to use those oval patches, I have personally found that this is where your extra inner tube comes in. So you apply some glue, apply the patch. It has this little plastic backing on it, a little film plastic. I don't bother to take that off because I don't want to risk pulling the patch off. So even though it looks messy, who's ever going to see it? It's on the inside of your tire. I just leave it on there so I don't risk pulling the patch off. And then once the patch is off, put it back, reassemble everything after you've checked that spot on the tire for what caused the puncture in the first place. Well, this is a slightly different thing. It's tire seal. I did a tour where I had some rotten tires because I wasn't paying attention and didn't do the proper maintenance before I set out. And my tires basically were falling apart on my little 3-4 day tour. And I used all the duct tape. At least I had the sense to bring duct tape. Don't go out the door without duct tape and zip ties. And I used duct tape to keep my tires together long enough to make it home. So duct tape, have duct tape. Tires. This is one of my trailer tires. And if your tires look like this, it means you need to replace them. These tires don't last forever. They can get worn down. Heat and everything can cause them to crack. Riding on chip seal roads is hard on tires. Do look at your tires. Be ready to replace them occasionally. So if they got obvious cracks like this, then definitely you need to get replacements. And before I get into this, I had a note I had written down here about tubeless tires. Nowadays they have these newfangled things called tubeless tires, and a lot of mountain bikers like them. And so basically what they are bicycle tires that function a lot like car tires, where you don't have that inner tube, and the seal between the rim of the wheel and the tire is all there is. And the people who ride these seem to really love them. I haven't really played around with it that much. One of the problems with this is you have to look at, not every rim is going to, and tire is going to be compatible with this system. So you're going to have to look at that and pay attention to it. I don't quite want to do it. I know inner tubes, probably this because I'm an old person, and between repairing my inner tubes and yelling at these kids to stay off my lawn, I just kind of go with what I know. But do by all means experiment with tubeless tires. The people who run these seem to really like them, but they are another level of effort you're going to have to put in, and either you're going to have to learn how to do it, or you're going to have to go to the bike shop and get them to set it up for you, and you're going to have to learn that system. So there is some learning curve with it, so not necessarily a bad thing to do.